At some point, at any point, I could have just said, this is not working. And I could have just quit. And I wouldn't be in the position I am today. I'd probably still be a teacher and just making money that I normally would make, but have been miserable at my job. I was absolutely miserable teaching. I didn't like it after I stopped coaching, hated it. But because I stuck with the real estate part and got the house under contract, got my first sold, got my 55, I was like, okay. And then I was able to exhale. Okay, this is something I can do. Welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I am your co-host, Russell Ham, on the West Coast. With me is my other co-host, Steve, on the East Coast. What's happening, Steve?
What's up, Russell? I'm a little tired. I've been under the sun on the beach for a couple of days. My brain's a little fried, but that's a good thing. I can't complain about the end of the beach season here. I wish it was longer.
Is that why California's so laid back? Because the sun is always on us and we're always strained. Is that why we're all just so laid back, or what?
It has to, because I'm stressed out all summer trying to make it last longer, and I get 4 months and it ends. It's not fair.
Yeah, it actually cooled down for us. It went from 105 to 95 today, so it's good.
105. Oh my God.
All right, today's episode, the three pillars are mindset, skill set, and systems. We're going to talk about mindset. More specifically, again, we talked about it in the past, right, Steve? Real estate and business in general, right? Owning a business is not easy. Starting a business is not easy. A lot of companies or a lot of people that have startups, they don't last very long, right? And that a lot of it has to do with mindset. A lot of it has a lot of factors on why things don't work out. In our space terms, we're not convincing, right? We're offering solutions to sellers that, hey, if you can wait for your money, this could be a good deal for you. You could either owner finance, what we're going to talk about in a second, or you get monthly payments, almost like what do you call it? You call it like a
installment sale.
Yeah. Or if you can wait for your money, you don't need it right away. You've moved already. You just want to be done with the previous house. We can take over your payments, and then we just cash you out at a later date. So terms in general is hard. It's not a fix and flip, right? Where we have capital and we put offers on houses. We get it under contract. We buy the house. We fix it. We flip it. It's not that. We got to get these things under contract and hope that the seller is okay with waiting for their money, which not a lot are, right? So it's
specific person, specific situation. Owner financing is interesting though. And you'd seen it before. We jumped on about how you can owner finance anything. I can owner finance my cell phone, right? If I want to sell my cell phone to somebody and they say, hey, Steve, I don't have $800 right now to buy it. And they say, but I can pay you $50 a month for a 40-month balloon payment, whatever it ends up being out. You can do it with anything. It doesn't matter if it's real estate.
Yeah, you charge them interest. Like you're just a bank, right? You're just acting as a bank, and bank loans money out for various reasons, right?
That's right. That's right. And the majority of people don't have giant chunks of cash sitting around for things. So it's a nice way to spread it out. And then also at the same time, it's a way of cash flow as well for the person that's lending the money. But I know you had mentioned before, one of the students, Judy Richards, she just has put together a owner financing deal on land that she's been working on for a while. And that seems to happen, right? Not every time you sit there and you cold call human beings, you get a great lead and they're ready to move forward. Now, a lot of the times it's even like a 3 to 6 months from your first contact when you're going under contract, but this one was much longer. Do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah. So that's what I want to touch upon as far as mindset, right? We'll get into the game plan, which is owner financing and what she can do with what she did. The mindset is, it took her 13 months, right? She spoke to this person 13 months ago and she just finally got it under contract. And I'm sure there was a lot of back and forth. And me personally, it took me a year, right? I started in February of 19. I got my first deal in January of 20. I had to give the house back because we couldn't sell it under the rent to own model that we have. And then I got my first sold, meaning I got it under contract. I found a rent-to-own buyer, I placed them in the home. And that was a year and a half later. At some point, at any point, I could have just said, this is not working. And I could have just quit. and I wouldn't be in the position I am today. I'd probably still be a teacher and just making money that I normally would make, but have been miserable at my job. I was absolutely miserable teaching. I
Yeah.
didn't like it after I stopped coaching, hated it, but because I stuck with the real estate part and got the house under contract, got my first sold, got my 50, I was like, okay. And then I was able to exhale. Okay, this is something I can do. For her, she's had a deal before, similar situation. She's had a deal before. It fell through. Now this one, she has an owner financing situation. How long did it take to get your first deal? Was pretty quick, right? I don't know if you remember. It was fairly quick, right? It was an AO or no?
My first property I got on a contract was a little over 5 months. And then within 2 weeks, I sent a buyer to the house to look at it while I was marketing it. And they're like, oh, the tenants who live there answered the door and said they just moved in. I'm like, what? And then I end up calling the guy and he's, oh yeah, you didn't sell. I was like, well, it's been like 13 days. What do you mean? We have 90 days. And he just rented it. And so I was like devastated because that 5 months in my brain of doing something new and calling all the time, I was like, when is this ever going to happen to me? Then it does. And then it pulls back out. So it was just a mental warfare for that kind of stuff. And then it took another 5 months after that to get my first contract and to sell it. Once I got on the contract, I actually sold it in 15 days because I actually had a buyer in my back pocket from another property, that property that I got on the contract, that was interested in one that just happened to when we took the property away because we lost it and they were like, oh, what the heck? But then
Was
the next one came and they were still there and ready. So we sold that
this
one.
the handyman special one? Is this where?
No, that one was my first one was an AO that I sold. And that specific one it was quick. It was like within a weekend, we're already figuring out like the attorney set up for them closing. It was nuts. And that was probably a bad thing because I had such a warped reality of what it was going to take to get a property in a contract and sell. That one was so quick and easy. I'm like, it was like $17,000 we made on a Tuesday. That happened like within a 15-day period. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, this is going to be easy.
Right.
And like anything, if you want to be good at something that's difficult and you're new at it, you're going to have highs and lows, but that's how you manage the highs and lows. So you can more stay on that steady incline instead of doing these big humps and jumps. Those are tough. It's really tough depending on how you allow yourself to experience this thing,
Uh,
it's either going to be a hell of a ride and you're going to have a lot of joy in it, or you're going to beat yourself up. And no matter how many deals you do, you'll never be satisfied. You'll always be chasing the next one. And then you won't be giving yourself credit for anything you've did and learned on the past. That's why they say the people who are the best at anything that they do, like they enjoy the process more than anything. And everybody a lot of times is rushing through the process to get to the end result. Then they get to the end result and they're like, that wasn't so great. I remember getting that first check, Russell, and I had a check that had $16,000 on it. Never seen anything like that before. And then I cashed it. It went in the bank and then it was like an adrenaline dump. It just went away. I was just like, that's it. Where's the parade and the big balloons? No one cares. But that was just all mindset. I had to be in control of that. Do you remember when you cashed your first check?
oh yeah. Can you imagine getting that large of a check? Because I'm just so as a teacher, you get paid monthly, and it's just it's just constant, right? It's just getting
Yeah.
this monthly payment, and the excitement wears off after a couple of years, and you're just like, okay, whatever. And then all of a sudden, you get that big check, and I put it up to my forehead, and I took a selfie on it. And I was
Mhm.
like super excited. But you're right. It's just, and then the euphoria runs off, and then you're like, okay, now what? So yeah, it is a mind F once you get that check, because it does increase your confidence, right? You're like, oh, there's kind of proof of concept right now. Oh, I can do this. This is something I can do. And then when you start talking to sellers, that conversation becomes easier because you're like, hey, I just did this and this is how it worked and this is how I was able to help a seller. So it is definitely a mind,
Mhm.
but again, it's not easy and it could take a while. Like I said, it's gonna take a while. It's not a get rich quick where it's gonna be instant cash flow. They always talk about cash flow and passive income. Not everything's necessarily passive. There's always I don't think anything's passive, but the length of time for me, again, it was a year. Sound like yours was about 10 months. Judy's was about 13 months. She can get this thing sold. Now let's pivot. Now that we've talked about the mindset aspect
Mhm.
of real estate. And again, it's not just real estate, it's just business in general. And we off there, we're like, hey, it takes time for things to get going. And you just touched on it. Sometimes you just gotta be patient. You just gotta let things develop. And when I was a basketball coach, you just gotta let things develop. A lot of times I want to call a play because I think that play is going to work and it's going to, again, but you look back at that one play is only going to give me 2 points or maybe 3.
Mhm.
But over the course of the game, you got to let things develop. If you have a general game plan, let that game plan develop, and then you'll be successful over the course of the game, not just because of that one play. That one play is not
Mhm.
going to win you a game, right? That one paycheck's not going to win you. It's not going to make you a business owner. It's what you do through the course of your time is going to make you a good business owner. Correct? Is that
Yeah.
fair?
I think a lot of times, especially with the patience thing, which is the difficult part, is like surrendering to the unknown and like surrendering to the uncontrollables.
Mhm.
That's the thing. You can put 5 things in front of you and that are making you worry about this or stressed out about your business, your life, whatever it is. 5 of them you actually have control over taking action on and taking any kind of relief away. And there's 5 other things there that there's nothing you specifically can't do to affect it other than look at it, worry, get nervous, get frustrated, whatever it is. And I think that the piece of that's a big piece of the patience. That's is being able to be, what's the word? Be okay with the fact that I don't know when this thing's going to happen, but if I stay consistent, I continue to show up and I continue to master this thing, master that thing, the controllables, right? Getting good at the phone, uh, maybe learning to use some of my technology that I have at just the the skill level I have to use it and not try to learn everything overnight and be a wizard at that, but just use it to be more efficient, to be more organized. You're just putting together all of these pieces at a pace that's actually sustainable.
Right.
Because when you start a business and you're at the beginning, you want to be the best and there's all these things you're going to be good at, but you have to understand it's not going to happen. You got to focus on things, get good, and then open up bandwidth for you to be able to work on these other things. I remember like when we first started within the group doing the home study course, and it's long. There's a lot of stuff. It's
A lot of
valuable.
modules,
There's a
yeah,
lot of
the
stuff on there.
module, yeah, QoS, right? Yeah.
QLS. So that was the first thing that I did when I came in. Let me go through this whole course before I have any coaching calls or go through anything. Let me learn this product. And I went through it and I'm like, oh, I learned a decent amount just from going through it once.
Mhm.
And then once I started making my phone calls, QLS was like this baseline, right? This foundation to help me have a little more confidence and feel more prepared in my brain while I talk to people. I'm obviously green in the gills, but like I have some information. And then 6 months later, after I'm in the business and I'm calling, I'm getting better, I'm having shots at the plate. You watch QLS and again, and there's a ton of stuff you don't even remember ever seeing because your brain can only take in so many different aspects of, let's say, all this new education that we're getting and all these different deal types, what they mean, what's transfer and title, what's not, you only can take in so much. Once your brain starts receiving this information and keeping it, now I think I watched it like 6 times within QLS within a year and a half. And it was like a new experience every time. This is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, it gives you a percent, right? Like how much
Yeah.
you walked in, because we keep adding things and taking things out. But to your point is you just got to refresh your brain every single time because there's probably things that you missed for the first go around. And if you guys don't know what QoS is, again, it's a whole petty course. That's how we learned how to buy and sell on terms. It's in the show notes. Just click on the link and you can get your QoS home study course if you just click on that link. Let's transition to the owner financing, the game plan. Am I frozen? I
Yeah,
was
you
frozen.
were.
Okay. Where did I leave off?
You said show notes and then I paused.
So that was at 15 minutes. All right. Okay. the home study course, QoS. It's in the home show notes, or it's in the show notes. Just click on that link if you're interested in maybe doing what we do, which is buy and sell on terms. You just buy that QoS and go through all the modules, and you can learn on how to buy and sell on terms. Let's pivot to Judy's deal, the owner financing. Again, this is a unique one because there's no house on its land. A lot of times when you come into the Wicked Smart community, Smart Real Estate Coach, we primarily focus on single family homes. And I know a lot in the East Coast, you guys have a lot of multis, right? You have a lot of duplexes, triplexes. Out here in the SoCal, we don't necessarily have a lot of those, right? A lot of it is just single family home. So that's what we primarily focus on when you come into the community. But you can owner finance, like you said, you can owner finance anything. You can owner finance your car. You can owner finance a pen. You can owner finance anything, right?
Yeah.
Because when it comes to owner financing, you're just acting as the bank, right? And banks loan money for all kinds of reasons. And so in Judy's deal, 13 months ago, this guy's, no, I just want to try and sell traditionally. He was having a hard time selling land. Land is a hard sell. It's not easy to sell land unless you're a developer or an investor. So she was able to get it under contract. The guy originally wanted money down, and he wanted like a ton of money. So they suggested a HELOC. I don't know how you can do a HELOC on land, but
maybe could have been like a cash out refinance too.
Right.
There's a bunch of things they could have done.
Yeah. So they were suggesting taking money out, like you said, take money out, cash out, refi, and then we can take over your payments if that's the case. Which, again, if you have a ton of equity, selling on terms could work, right? Because then you can cash out, refi, or you can do a HELOC, take your money and run, and then we take over that payment, and you don't have to worry about the house anymore. So this is land. There's different ways you can buy land, and you don't want to just buy a plot of land. There's got to be access. You got to have frontage. They call it frontage, and you got to make sure that there's access to them. So then I think what they're going to do is that, Steve, and you can do anything. Yeah, you can subdivide it. So now you're paying the seller, hypothetically, say you're paying the seller $3,000 a month, principal only, hopefully. And again, it ends up being like the one word I was trying to think about in the beginning of the show was an annuity, right? So maybe the guys is like, hey, I'm 75 years old. I just need some sort of annuity or like a retirement plan. Let's say hypothetically, Judy's going to give him $30,000 a month. She can now, because title's going to transfer to her, the seller's acting as the bank now. She's giving him $3,000 a month. She has the title. She is now the owner of the land. She can do whatever she wants with it. She could build a house on it if she wanted to. She could, but what I think she's going to do is she's going to subdivide it. I'm not sure how many acres it is. And then she can owner finance it to these individual investors who can buy the land, build, and do whatever they want. So it's just a continuous owner financing situation. And she can probably do it, land contract where the title doesn't transfer until, she gets 20% down. So there's a lot of different things you can do. And that's why owner financing is big, and especially in our community, because it's so lucrative, right? I think she only put down a $10 consideration fee. Hypothetically, if it goes to I think it's a 48 month deal. It's well over $150,000 deal.
There's also got to be avenues and avenues of money. You can't count on it because of the options that she has of what she wants to do with it. Because if she starts subdividing, that means you can start selling those as individual sales, right? Each subdivision.
Yeah. And if it's contingent on finding a buyer. So she technically not paying this guy $3,000 a month until she finds a buyer, which that buyer is going to pay the $3,000 a month. Right. So there's really, the money for her is infinite because she only paid a $10 consideration, and then she's going to get money from this buyer and then giving it to the seller, and then she's going to keep whatever difference that is. Plus, she's going to keep the down payment, which is our payday one. She's going to keep the cash flow, which is our payday two. And then on or before 48 months, these people are going to get loans and cash her out, which she's going to cash the seller out. That's her payday three. So there's 3 paydays for her in this 48-month long stretch. Now, and I told the community, I said, this is going back to mindset and those that are frustrated that they're not getting deals. Would you wait 13 months if you knew that there's in 13 months, there's a deal worth over $150,000? Would you wait? And if you said no, then, there's something wrong with you, right?
Yep.
If there was $150,000 waiting for me in 13 months, I would wait. I would try to hone my skills and get better at it, and then do that a couple more times. And now you're getting these residual checks coming in monthly from these deals because you waited, right? And that's all the kind of the mindset that I was talking about earlier. What are your thoughts on the owner financing system?
I'll say that the not knowing that's what creates the grind, right? We don't have the ability to have a crystal ball, and that makes it where you have to blindly trust and believe in yourself. That's very difficult for people, especially when you're building a real estate business alone. And that's why the community is so valuable, right? One would. You want to wait?
22 more? Okay. Go for it.
All right. Yeah, I was just saying that. That's why like doing this within a community makes it that much easier. If you're a individual, like solopreneur, you just sit, and I'm going off of my perspective, but it seems like my perspective on this is similar with most people. During this time of learning this thing, not knowing what success looks like for you, being hard on yourself, constantly getting no's over and over again, depending on how you choose to receive that information, changes everything for better or the worse. I think that's the biggest piece. Is it's actually, if you look at it correctly with the not knowing and grinding and creating grit, I think that's one of the most important part of us being successful, because that's how you start to learn things about yourself that you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, you have to get to the area of maybe going 13, 15 months without doing a deal and having this emotional war inside of you to then learn where you can go and come out the other side. But when you do come out the other side, you gain so much more from that than having a year of all successes.
Right.
I know it would be great, right? You start a business and out of nowhere, you become a millionaire and you call 10 people, you get 10 houses. That's fantastic. It's not realistic. It's not going to happen. But what you learn in that time where you're grinding the hardest, which is usually the beginning of the business, ends up setting the tone for all the following years of you knowing, like, you can now identify when things are getting tougher. You can now identify when the market's opening up and you're having conversations on average have been better. You're picking up patterns quickly of where I need to improve, where I'm improving, what's the next thing to improve, what's the next skill set to do. Like, that's the next level up when you can free up that mental, what's the best way of saying it? I felt like it was like a darkness over me for the first 9 months. It was chaos. I had never had such awful things to think and say about myself in my life other than that first 9 months. Because I was just so certain that I was going to come into whatever new thing because I was just full of piss and vinegar and I was just working harder than I ever worked, that this was going to be a breeze. And it's hard work. If you really care and you really want to get good at it and you know what it's like to get good at things, whether it's sports, how you commit in relationships, whatever it is that you're doing, that if you want to be extraordinary and not just someone who's just participating for fun, someone who's really cares and that is prideful about being good at something, you're going to get obsessed with it. Right? Yeah. It's not something where you just show up, you give 50% effort and get 100% results. It's just not, that's bad math, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work, however you want to put it. And when you're doing it alone, anytime you take a foot off the gas pedal, your business stops. Yeah. There isn't a third shift in a warehouse that shows up when you go home, right? You wake up, you're exhausted, you're frustrated from the day before, it carries into the day, or other way. You wake up, you're excited from your successes and you ride that wave for as long as possible, but you have to be in control of how you receive and perceive information, and then actively go out and find people that can help you in those places that you're struggling, like a mental coach, like Dr. Amanda, financial literacy stuff, Adam Carroll, learning how to move money around to pay down mass amounts of debt. Like, we don't get taught these things.
Right.
It would
Yeah.
be wonderful if we did.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought
And
Amanda, because we didn't do it alone. You and I both seeked out Dr. Amanda. She's rebranded a few times.
yeah.
When we first started, it was no fucking around.
Mhm.
But now I think it's called Inner Power. And again, Inner Power, there's also a link in the show notes for her if you want to check that out and get a little consultation with her. We didn't do it alone, right, Steve? We definitely, if we tried to do it alone, maybe we wouldn't be sitting here, right? I think we reached out. We reached out to the community, number one. We reached out to our own coaches, our mentors, Chris. And then we also reached out to a mental coach and Dr. Amanda and Adam Carroll, like you said, as far as the shred method and all that kind of stuff. All right, let's pivot, Steve, to our cool down. And if you remember what our cool down is, I think you're going to take control of the cool down here as far as, I'm going to pause it here because I forgot what the cool down was.
Was it sales? The skill of sales?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
There's a few edits I'm going to have to make here. All right. So 28 minute. What was it? Sales? Oh,
It's like
sales.
the skill of sales is so
All right.
getting really good at.
So cool. We're going to get it. Let's pivot, Steve, to our cool down. I'm going to let you take it over as far as sales. Now, within the community, we talk about we're not selling anything. We're not selling a product, right? We are, however, selling ourselves, right? We have to show the seller that they have confidence in what we're doing. They have to have confidence in us, that we're not trying to put one over on them, right? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, it's too good to be true," or they think it's a scam. It's not a scam. It's just buying and selling on terms has been around over 100 years, right? So it's not new. So it's not a scam. But talk about the sales part and how that relates just in general, right? Not necessarily in terms of business, but in general.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a wild journey. If you continue to surround yourself with people who are high level and you try not to be the smartest person in the room and always be around people who are smarter, you realize how many levels there are to anything, right? Specifically sales. There's a gentleman that I follow. His name is Alex Hormozy. You ever hear of this guy?
No.
He's a guy that's always in a wife beater. He's got tied back, brown hair. He's a sales trainer and he owns a lot of businesses. He's younger too. I don't even think he's in his 40s, but he has a lot of powerful stuff. You should take a look at him if you never heard of him before. But he talks a lot about what kind of a salesperson you are. And I'm trying to remember it was basically 3 different things. I'm going to botch this, but it was like a horse, a dog, a horse, and a lion. And like, what are you within those 3 things? And, basically the first one being the dog is the person that just goes up, shows up, does their job, goes home, doesn't do a ton. The horse is someone who, if you lead them, they'll follow, right? Like a dog, what happens with a dog? You feed them, you take care of them. If you didn't do it, they would die, right? A horse, you can lead them and they'll also go out there and continue to build more on their own, but eventually that person's also not sustainable. And then there's the lion basically that just eats everything they kill and they create opportunities. It doesn't matter if they're a salesman for a company. If they drop their marketing tomorrow and stop providing you with anything, they would farm and they would find their own stuff. They would survive, almost like the mentality of a business owner, right? And it's interesting I've been in a couple of different versions of real estate, and what I thought sales was like, there are so many different avenues. Like I'm in a very different world now where I'm in the marketing side where it's it's still sales, but it's a different type. Like I was in the real estate when I was like heavy into cold calling, like hundreds of thousands of people. You could call that sales, I guess, as well, because it definitely is. And the same thing, repetitive stuff. I do repetitive stuff on a daily basis, but you got to figure out ways to connect with people in different ways when you're doing repetitive things, because it gets stale. People can hear that on the other end of the phone. And again, it's all at the end of the day, if you can't separate yourself from the sale and do what's right for them, nothing happens. Real estate, if you can't find a solution for that person and show that whatever decision is made on this phone with me as long as it's a good fit for you. And if that means me telling you that I'm not a good fit for you, when you have that mentality, that's how people, that person that you got off the phone with that you can't buy their house now, if that doesn't work out for them, they remember the one person who wasn't trying to sell them on something that wasn't a fit for them. They weren't forcing it down their throat. They said, listen, it sounds based off of what it is that you need. What I'm doing is not going to be your best solution. Not to say that it won't be a solution in the future, but I think you should do this and this before you come back to me. Maybe that's hire a realtor. Maybe that's stay in the house and see what the interest rates do for a while, right? Really leading with your heart and doing what's right for them. It's the same thing on what I'm doing on a daily basis. And just figuring out, is this thing that I have, that I believe in, that I know that works, is it going to be sustainable for you specifically over time? Are you not financially ready for this yet? Are you ready for this, but you're scared? And I got to make you feel that I believe in you. I truly do. And I can really see with everything you've told me so far that you do for a living and how it is that you buy real estate, and that's part-time, it's full-time, whatever it is. I can assess and see if you're ready for this now, but you have to be bought in. You got to be bought into that product, whether the product is something that you're selling as a piece of this niche of real estate, whatever it is. And you got to be able to listen to people and assess if right now where they're at is what I can do going to put you in a position of success. And I just think over time, what I'm seeing now is I'm not as good as a salesman as I thought. My numbers are really good, but I'm so far down the ladder of where I'm going to be. And it's humbling to know that. Because when you surround yourself with people and you start growing and you start moving way up in whatever position you're in, and then you move to a different place and there's some monsters, you're like, oh, I was just in the wrong pond. Like I'm back again. I'm like this little guy now again. And it's good to see, because now I know I have so much room to grow and learn from these people, and it should be encouraging. But again, it's that perception piece. Are you going to look at it and are you going to be like thrown off, or, oh, this person's way better than me, I'm never going to be as good as them, or be jealous? Or do you look at this as a super opportunity now,
Right,
for me to really progress? Cause I was plateauing. And if you don't go in uncomfortable places, you will plateau over and over again in whatever it is that you're doing. And
yep,
when you start to plateau, and it's like, I felt like about 2 months ago on my job that I was starting to plateau, because I think I wasn't being creative enough in my head. I was like doing stuff that was like, remember cold calling, like all the time, cold calling. You have to start getting creative and looking at it, whether you figure out a way to make it a game, or you figure out a way to what's working, or really what am I just doing over and over again, and accepting, instead of saying the traction isn't here, and being honest, but then also having people around you that will tell you, Steve, I've listened to your call. You're great on the phone, but like something's off right now. You got to reset. You seem disconnected. You seem lost. When that happens, Russell, you remember, like you get lost sometimes from doing it over and over again. And if you don't have people constantly looking over your shoulder and
yeah,
giving you critiques and stuff like that, you just get stuck in bad habits. You don't even realize it.
yeah. Yeah, we do that in our community, right? You were there, you were in our community, you were giving feedback all the time too.
Yeah.
And we saw the growth. What you were saying reminded me of when I was coaching basketball, the best JV player, he's on the JV basketball team, and he's super good. And then all of a sudden he gets moved up to varsity and he gets smacked in the face. Like, you thought you were good at the JV level, and then you come to varsity and you get your butt handed to you, because it's eye awakening. And what you were talking about is like, I'm not saying you're a JV player, but you got comfortable in your position. Then all of a sudden you move up, or you see somebody else and you're like, oh, that's how it's done. But the good news is you have people there that are going to, they want to see you win, right?
Yeah.
And you want to surround your people that want to see you win. So they're going to help you. They're going to critique you, and they're going to say, hey, you need to do this and this in order to move forward. All right, Steve, let's end it here. Great call, buddy. Thanks for jumping on. I know you're a little tired, but let's see if we can get maybe Judy or Jess on next week, and then start interviewing some people and checking out what their journey has been like. All right.
Let's round up some of our friends.
Yep. All right, buddy. Great seeing you again, and I will see you next week. Take care.